Ok, vai, possiamo iniziare.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Calogero, and thank you for coming tonight for this informal discussion about PhD and grad school in the US. So we have the great pleasure to have Professor Daniel Tartakovsky and Professor Ilenia Battiato. Um, they are Professor Tartakovsky is a full professor at the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering at the University of California, San Diego. And Ilenia Battiato is an assistant professor at Clemson University in South Carolina. So this discussion has been proposed by the Alumni Society of the Scuola Superiore, as you know. And I'm Calogero. I haven't met most of you, but I know Antonio over there, and I don't see any other faces that I know. So I was one of the in the first class of the Scuola when it all started in 1999, and in this moment I'm in San Diego, and I'm an engineer. And I thought that it would be good to have Daniel and Ilenia to introduce you a little bit of to a discussion about graduate school in the US for a couple of reasons. Two pretty distinct reasons. So if at any moment something is not clear or my voice breaks up, you can stop me or let me know, raise your hand. I can see all of you. I think there are two reasons why it's good to have this discussion as early as possible, and the two reasons are quite distinct. The first one is you want to start thinking about what is best for you as soon as you can, whether you want to pursue a career in Italy, you want to go research or more professional work, or whether you want to keep studying for a postgraduate school or graduate school in a foreign country. So, and to make that choice, you'd rather want to know what your options are in the most clear way, without any chance of misunderstanding. So that's one reason. The other reason is that when you make your choice, you also want to make sure that there are no logistic problems related to immigration law or admission procedures in the universities and things like that. So you want to make the right choice first, and second, you want to make it not too late, so that you can still have an option to pursue your choice and your desires for your postgraduate education. Very often I hear people that they finish their master, they already graduated, and they say, well, how about I go do an internship in the US? Well, that's not easy at all, because there are immigration laws that pretty much prevent you from doing that, unless you have studied in the US. Well, you can still look for a job, but there are trade-offs while looking for a job, if you have been a student in the US or not, that could make it easier or harder to get a job here. So that's why we've invited Ilenia and Daniel, who both have extremely relevant experience, both as professors and students in these topics. So at this point, I will let them start the discussion, and maybe we can start by I don't know, we can introduce ourselves. I already introduced myself, so Ilenia or Daniel, you can take the lead now.
Okay. Well, I suppose that we can it's too formal. So, I mean, my take on this is that really this meeting is for you, like to give you information, and if you have questions of any type, doubts, you should bring them up and just, ask for clarification. I can first, maybe I can first start by telling you how I ended up in the US. And every story is a little bit different. I went to the US, so then you will probably have history as well, and then from there we can go if you have any curiosity, we can, go over that. So, well, I was born in Catania, and then, lived here and there in southern Italy because of my dad's job, and did my high school in Syracuse, Liceo Scientifico, so pretty standard, I don't know, life. And then at the moment when I graduated, hey, when I graduated from high school, then I decided to go to Milan, and that's where I started. I enrolled in environmental engineering there. Practically, the only reason was that my brother was already there. So at that time, we didn't know. Actually, my brother started. Well, if we knew about this school, probably, things would have done differently. But so we just went to Milan. I followed my brother there, so that's how I ended up there. Well, that in Sicily there is not much knowledge about what's out there. Like it's just you practically make choices almost. I wouldn't say by chance, but there is not a real path that would take you, to a very precise destination. And I think this school is actually one example where this path now exists. So for you, it's much easier. I mean, at least you are exposed to what's in the rest of the world. So I went to Milan. Started engineering, and that was nice the first 2 years. So that was back in the times where there was laurea, 5 years vecchio ordinamento. So I started with physics, math, and all this analysis, and that I liked a lot. And then you switch to more applied topics during the third, fourth, and fifth year, and that I didn't like it so much. And so eventually I switched a little bit topics for my thesis. So I started working in subsurface hydrology. Essentially, it's, you can think about it as fluid mechanics and complex structures. At that time, it was still very applied. Then, after I graduated from Milan, essentially I wanted to go on a vacation, and accidentally I graduated in December, so actually the way I ended up in San Diego was very strange, because my brother and I wanted to go on vacation, and we said, okay, we want to be in a hot climate, where should we go? Australia. My mom said, no, it's too far away. England. No, but England is boring and it rains a lot, and so we said, okay, let's go for San Diego, because it was the southernmost place in the US where they still spoke English, so really random choice. I shared this information with my thesis advisor back then, and he told me, there is a professor who actually is looking for PhD students there. Are you interested in going? And then that's essentially how it all started. I accepted, I got the offer from UCSD. I applied, I got the offer from UCSD, and then eventually I moved to the University of California, San Diego, in the mechanical and aerospace engineering department, where my work started, became a little bit more theoretical and computational. And then after graduating, so I got both my, I would say, second master, because laurea essentially the first master. I got my second master, then my PhD there after 4 years, and then I did a postdoc at the Max Planck Institute for Dynamics and Self-Organization in Germany. Stayed there for maybe a year, a little bit less than a year and a half. And then,
Ilenia, Ilenia, would you like to explain a little more what is a bachelor, what is a master's, what is PhD? Because it may not be, it wasn't clear to me a few years ago.
Yeah, so essentially in the American system, when you go to college, you have a 4 years degree, right? So after 4 years, you get what's called the bachelor degree, which would correspond essentially to laurea di primo livello, even though here it's 1 year. It's 1 year less, right? So you get the bachelor, and then after bachelor, you have to pass. The first one is to go to do a master, which is extra, let's say, 2 years, right? Well, if you're fast, it can be 1 year. Or go for PhD, and on the way of your PhD doctorate, you also can get a master on the way, like on the path. So you have these two options. Or you can start with a master, and then if you like doing that, if you like the place, then you can kind of continue for PhD, but there is always an application process. Yeah, so everybody's familiar with this type of. Yeah, and so essentially that's all. I did postdoc, then I got an offer from Clemson University, Mechanical Engineering Department as an assistant professor. Stayed there, well, I'm still there officially until August, but then I got an offer from San Diego State in mechanical engineering. So I will be moving to San Diego actually August 1st. And that's pretty much my story up to this point of my life. But maybe.
Yeah, it was
a long story.
Very long.
So maybe you or Daniel, you want to outline a little more about the application process. You know, stuff like GRE and TOEFL, and what you see in the application that is done well, and what you see is not done so well by prospective students.
Right. So maybe you have questions. Would be better.
Yeah. I was interested in timing. I mean, how long before you will start taking your PhD in the US?
That's way in advance, right? Because to start studying in, say, September, in 2 months, or 2 months, so you would have been admitted by April 15th. And to do that, you would have to apply by, I think, December or January. Right? And to apply, you need to have protocol and GRE, so that you need to do, like, I think you should apply a year in advance.
There's a distinction between early technique.
So in America, there is no late deadline. They will not accept you.
Okay. Because for undergrad, I know there's like 2 deadlines, like early application and
regular. Yeah. So that's very cheap, and that's too late for you anyway. That has nothing to do with the graduate program.
Okay. So let's say
Yeah.
Yeah, and it takes time to prepare for these exams. So I don't know, are you familiar with TOEFL and GRE? So one is, essentially English language exam, and especially if you are not, so I was absolutely not exposed to, well, you study in school, but with an Italian teacher who teaches you English spoken by Italians, which Americans will not understand. And you would not understand them when they speak. In fact, when I went to San Diego, the only people I could talk to were Mexican, because my Spanish happened to be better than my English, even though I learned Spanish only for 2 years, but from a Spaniard teacher, rather than English that I learned supposedly for like, I don't know, 13 years, or maybe whatever, 5 or 6 years. Well, again, the grammar is good, right? You can read perfectly and understand what's written, but when you have to interact, the first 3 months, in class, the good thing it was math, and you would solve the blackboard, otherwise it would have been a complete disaster if you do it. Probably then it has the same experience.
But yeah, so any other questions?
Is it worth it to apply for a US PhD instead of a European one? I mean, US PhD is like 6 years something, like 5 years. I mean, it's really longer than European one.
So I think it depends on what you want to do, right? So if you want to get a job in the US, then it's absolutely yours. Because it's much harder to get a job than from an American university. And if you want to stay in Europe, then you could okay with the European PhD.
Maybe at the same time you can just get a PhD, a European one, and then like switching to postdoc application like in the US.
So I think after that it's much harder to get it.
That's hard.
Well, you know, there are few schools maybe in Europe, like if you go to Oxford or Cambridge, that's, you know, it's a British system, so they would kind of look at you almost the same way as you had a PhD from an American school. But, or maybe, you know, a Cal Polytechnic, you know, there are few schools where it wouldn't make it harder or much harder, at least in academia, but probably, yeah, if you want to go to a company, then, because they don't care, right? In a company, American companies, they know about American schools. But in academia, you would still have a very good, you know, academic career if you, and again, it's a matter of numbers, right? It's not that.
Also, this thing goes on the web, right? So you should be careful when I think. So in the United States, you can spend as many years as needed and still not get a PhD, right? So there, the fact that you got a PhD means that you are capable of studying and finishing. So in many European schools, it's 3 years, right? So you spend 3 years there, you would play soccer, football, or whatever, and in the end of the year, you get your PhD. And just by the fact that you were there. And then, of course, it means a different thing, right? When people want to hire you. So, even from I think it wouldn't happen in England, and in many other places. It's good. And so people think with these different things in mind. Like I know it's for a fact in Italy, it's like that, right? Italian companies think that you just didn't want to grow up, and that's why you decided to do PhD.
Well, let's say that the prospect with you know, in Italy, the fact that you get a PhD does not mean that you will, you know, be more successful in terms of getting a better job or a better paid job. That's the reality, right? So, you know, even when when I graduated from Polytechnico Milan, I mean, when you go in the job market, they will say, you know, yeah, we know that now you can do 2 + 2 but what else can you do, right? So that's unfortunately the approach, and you know, that thought, line of thought, tends to continue also with the PhD, right? The way it is perceived, right? In the US instead, there is a very strong correlation between the degree level that you're going to get, whether it's bachelor, master, or PhD, and your salary. That's it. It's like, I wouldn't want to say that it's like one-to-one correlation, but it's very, very highly correlated. And there are even, depending on your discipline, that you can even look online what are the typical range of salaries that you would get, or where you would start from. So why in Italy or in Europe, I don't know, but let's say in Italy, they would still hire you with a very advanced degree for a job that does not, maybe that is a little bit too low in terms of expertise requirements. In the US, it wouldn't happen. They would tell you, look, if you have a PhD, you can't enter at this very low level, the minimum you can do is this. Because otherwise you would be overqualified, and they wouldn't hire you if you are overqualified. This means that PhDs do certain jobs that are generally better paid than masters, than that, people who got a bachelor degree. And probably with this, Calogero can tell more, right? Because he's working at Qualcomm.
Yeah, I can comment on that. So when we so I thought I have a little bit of a hard time hearing everything, but I thought there was a discussion about doing a PhD in the US versus doing it in Italy. Is that true?
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah.
Or in Europe. Or in Europe.
Or in Europe. So so I got mine in Italy, and I think that there are some advantages to getting it in Italy, but it's somewhat you want to evaluate very, very carefully, because in Italy after 3 years you get it, no matter what. I mean, I haven't heard of anyone being rejected at its defense after 3 years. I haven't ever heard of anyone. So after 3 years you get a PhD, but what that means is that you either wasted 3 years or you gained some time, because in the US it generally takes longer. So if you decide to pursue a PhD in Italy, you better make sure you have the right advisor. And that means you need to find a professor that has very strong international connections, that has very strong technical expertise, the ability to guide you very quickly to a high level of research. And you are fortunately in a kind of a unique position, because I hope that that is still true, that the Scuola Superiore encourages you to start your research even during the masters, or even earlier than that. You can exploit that opportunity to start your research and build a connection with a professor, and keep that connection through the PhD, and at the end you will be getting a degree very fast. On the other hand, if you happen to not find the right professor, then you basically wasted time, because when we hire people here at my company, or any company that you may be concerned, then we really look at the publication and the expertise. And the same happens in the academia if you're looking for a postdoc. So the piece of paper matters to a certain extent, but not too much. So if you have a PhD and you don't have the right level of publication, we will notice immediately. And that PhD will actually hurt you, as Ilenia said, because then we cannot hire you at a lower position because you have a degree that's a kind of worms. It's very hard, and then you're basically in a big trouble. And then you may want to have another PhD in the US, but now you cannot, because as far as I know, and Ilenia and Daniel can correct me, if you already have a PhD, you cannot get a second one. So that's something to really be careful about. Yeah, it's nice that in Italy after 3 years you get it, but it may not be worth anything unless you find the right professor with the right research lab, the right line of research, that really knows what a PhD can and should mean for you. So it's not obvious that you have to go in the US to get a PhD. You can get good ones even in right where you are, but just be careful. I don't know if Ilenia and Daniel they share similar experiences with postdocs coming from Europe or application like that.
I agree that and then it depends on they can either be very good or very bad.
So there is a lot of spread, in a way. So it's.
No, so I think usually it's the connections. So I mean, and this I think what Calogero meant. Finding a right professor is very important, because all my Italian postdocs or post students, I get them in their professors meeting. And in fact, that's how you should find if you want to find. Talk to professors who know people in Europe or in the US, wherever you want to go. And to get to move is very easy, right? Because if somebody recommends you to me, then I will hire you without like really second thoughts. But you could deceive me only once, because after that I will say, Alberto, I will not listen to you.
No, exactly. So on this, I would like to say something, because so in the US, this system of recommendation letters is or recommendation is a system that, while it may sound similar to the Italian word, it means a completely different thing. Okay, so when a professor recommends to another professor to hire this student, there is a matter of credibility. So the implication is that, first of all, these two professors have collaborated in the past, or they are still collaborating on active research, right? This means that the professor who recommends a student to another one really will recommend only the best student he has, okay? Because if that is not the case, as he said, one person can be deceived only once, right? So the second time, the other professor would not consider the recommendation as worthy anything, right? Worth anything. So the idea of recommendation is that if you are an excellent student and you choose an advisor who has active research or even past research, by that I mean that he has publication with somebody in the US, then this person in Italy can really link the bridge between, you know, Italy or wherever you guys would want to go and Europe and the US. But the necessary condition is that you are excellent student, right? Because so it's a system of trust, but that works because people will lose a lot if they lose their credibility as scientists, right? So I would never recommend a bad student to a colleague of mine. Like, this is absolutely out of question. And so, yeah.
This way of thinking, is it typically American, or is it also a European way, based on your experience?
What I would say is that generally professors who are active in research and who are serious researchers, regardless of what they are, they think like this. My feeling. Then, you know, I started very recently, just, 2.5 years ago. So it's not that I have a lot of, but my feeling is that anybody who is a good researcher and cares about his international reputation as a researcher and a respectable scientist will think like this. If you are a joker, then you will realize that, really at the beginning. So just make your homework, look at the publication list, look at when the latest publication is, right? Because you don't want somebody whose golden age was 20 years ago, right? So you want somebody that is being active now, right? So publications that are recent, publications that are every year. Because if the professor has publication every year, it means that at least he publishes work on international journals. Well, again, that's another point. So you want people also that publish in good journals, but that's another. But at least it shows that the speed at which you do research is good enough to allow you to actually maybe go for postdoc later on, right? If you publish only one paper in 3 years for an engineering degree, it's too little to find an appealing postdoc. In engineering, right? And well, in physics, yes. So in math, it is different. In math, it's different. Generally, I had a friend who actually worked with the field medalist at University of California, San Diego, Zermano, at him. And so generally in math, from my knowledge, you may end up, you may finish your PhD by publishing one solo author paper, which is your thesis. But again, so this is just, it's not my direct experience, it's through friends. But so the numbers change depending on your field of applications, and you should be aware of these numbers. You could do it differently. You could maybe go to, the website of people in residency schools. I don't know, pick your favorite and see, the frequency at which they publish, in which journals they publish, and then you will understand where good people people publish, good scientists publish. And with that, then you can decide whether or not this professor is good for you or not.
So, Ilenia, may I ask, maybe you discussed this briefly, I didn't catch it. So, what you and Daniel, when you, either of you gets an application for a PhD or for a master's, what do you look for? What are the highlights that you examine in the application? What is the content of the application, and what do you specifically look in that?
Yeah.
Well, so I think, first of all, if you need financial support, do not apply for master's degree, right? Because in the US, at most universities, master's degree does not require a thesis. Right? So you take classes, you don't do any research, and you get your degree, and so then nobody will pay you to take classes. So, and you can skip this stage, right? You can apply straight to a PhD program, and then once you take classes, you will get a master's degree. Okay. Along the way around. So that I think is the biggest mistake that many people make. That they will think, first I will apply for masters, and then once, if I like it or do it well, then I'll continue with the PhD. So if you do that, your chances of getting financial support are very low. Right? And
oh, the question was what
to
are the
look
highlights?
for. So I think what we look at is, so unfortunately, if you apply, say, to the US and maybe in Europe, and England, so while we are all justifiably proud of your school, just like I was very proud of my school in Russia, in America nobody knew you are. Right? So what they would look at, I think, is your GRE scores and your TOEFL. Well, TOEFL not so much. What's the GRE? And letters of recommendation from your professors. So that's very important. And then the letter that you write describing why you applied to the school and what you want to do. So these three things are very important. And when you apply, you should go to the website of the department that you want to go to and spend some time looking at what professors are doing. And then you would say, I've always dreamed since I was born doing this, and that. And isn't it amazing that Professor such and such does exactly this? I really want to work with you. So something like that would help. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the GRE, am I done? So in terms of GRE, so the GRE is essentially a quantitative exam. I mean, it's logic, and now I don't remember, but maybe there is some basic physics, but essentially most of the schools require a general GRE. Okay, so there are different types of GREs. There can be GREs on specific subjects, so I don't know, GRE physics, and then there is a general GRE that essentially is, basic math and logic and whatever other verbal understanding and things of that nature. So that GRE, which I think most schools require just the general, but in certain schools they do require the subject area GRE. But generally it's just the general GRE. So that's really, as he said, the most important thing. And the reason for that is because there are, so first of all, you can train, and I mean, it shouldn't be a problem for you guys, because I believe the entrance exam probably in this school may be kind of similar to that exam. So you can train for it, you can prepare. There are things online, and there are people who really prepare. So, and by that I mean that they get 100% correct. Okay? So, and I say that because, you know, and I can say this because I'm Italian. So we Italians sometimes say, yeah, you know, I'm smart, I figured it out. You know, and we do. I mean, we do figure it out. But when you have to compete, let's say with an Indian or a Chinese that has been training really day and night, and I'm not joking. Oh, no, I mean it's good. It's good. I'm just saying. Well, we can cut this one, but no, and they are excellent, right? So it's you know, culturally there are some differences, and I'm Italian, and I know this is how we approach exams. We don't train a lot. We don't practice a lot. We just see a little bit of examples here and there, and then it's okay. You know, I'm smart, I'm confident, I can do it. And we can, but then eventually, maybe we get only 98% correct, or maybe 95%. And it's an excellent score, but it may not be enough, just because this is very competitive. And the competition is, you know, with students throughout the world who have, you know, different backgrounds, you know, they may be stronger in certain disciplines, for various reasons. So it's critical that you guys really are aware that you have to invest some time. And also,
I have a question.
Yeah.
So does it ever happen in the application you receive, either you or Daniel, that a prospective student already has relevant publications? And if it happens, how would you value that relative to the GRE or the essay or the letter of recommendation?
So I can give you my answer, and then Daniel, because this is really personal, I think. So when I see a student that has already publications, what I look at, first of all, is you know, what degree he has, he or she has. Okay? So, for example, if a bachelor student, if a student who just got his bachelor degree there, or even a master, has like a publication, I disregard it immediately. Because in my field, and again, this is very personal, in my field, it is extremely rare that at that level in your academic career, you can end up with 10 different publications that you have done by yourself, okay? So I personally disregard it. I take it and throw it away. I don't even look at the, you know, at GRE. I don't take it seriously. But this is again, people, and then you have there is always, you know, a threshold, because maybe if I were a professor in Berkeley, when I know that, you know, the top students apply, maybe I can, you know, I can think it is reasonable that an excellent student may be, but I still find it very hard, can have 2 excellent publications, okay? But definitely not 10. If it's 1 publication, or you know, if there is any publication, what I do is that I may decide to and then ask about, you know, ask the details just to understand if that was really his or her work. And then, if, you know, if he will understand immediately, because if you writing a publication really requires such a level of maturity and that you will feel it, like in the conversation. But too many, in my, you know, but this is my opinion. Maybe some other people would.
What about you, Daniel? What do you think?
Well, I think nothing can override GRE. You have a bad grade,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter unless you already won double time. So it wouldn't count. That's a very great. But
I'm sorry, I have a really hard time understanding Daniel's voice right now.
Maybe it's because we are talking.
Maybe you can rotate the computer.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wait, do you want to do that?
Let's continue.
Yeah.
So I think even regardless of whether you want to apply or not, it's relatively cheap to take this exam, and you can take it as many times as you want, right? And only I think the best score will count, right? I think, or maybe the latest, or maybe the best. I'm not saying, but you can try. Prepare for a week, go and take it, and then you will see where you stand. So, in my department, to get a fellowship, you need 100% in quantitative part, not in linguistic, but in quantitative and math part, you need to get 100%. So try it and see where you are, just to gauge your options, right? And then you would maybe take it again.
Yeah, and also this exam is the GRE specifically, at least from my memory, it's particularly long. Okay, so Calogero, do you agree that GRE is particularly long?
It's particularly what?
Long, but anyway, so
Yeah, I think so. It's pretty long. I didn't do it myself. My wife did it.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember it was pretty long.
Yeah, so it's really, I think, either 3 hours and a half straight or 4 hours and a half.
Yeah.
Now, yes.
Honestly, I think these guys, if these guys handle the admission to the school, I think they can handle a GRE. They just need to be prepared, know a little bit, know about it enough, and exercise.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be too scared of it, but I wouldn't also either neglect it or.
I mean, it's not hard, but you just need to prepare and be aware that it's a long exam. So by the end, like by the last half an hour, your brain may be a little bit higher, and so you just do a little bit of that's also a good way to know that maybe you shouldn't train in 30-minute breaks, but you should train maybe 2 hours, doing it over so that you just get used to the length of it. Because the second part, the verbal part, it's all in English and you have to read text and stuff. Again, it's not difficult, but then if you are tired, your mind can meander a little bit here and there. And so it's just a matter of efficiency in training. So if you're running a marathon, you don't train for 1 kilometer at a time, right? You train on a different scale. So it's just good to know, prepare, and I mean, if you're here again, you won't have any problem, but just knowledge is good.
Is it required from all universities?
Excuse me?
GRE, required from all universities?
No, American.
Yeah, American.
I must say yes, or all American universities.
Yes, yes. So we talk to people, professors are a little bit more flexible in the sense that you shouldn't really you should have a decent performance, but 100% is not necessarily required, especially if you are a foreigner. So that there is an understanding there.
So there
So
we could find it on the website. Not hard. So TOEFL is easy.
No, that would be awesome.
It would be awesome.
I think so. No,
Yeah,
but
TOEFL is not important.
Yeah.
You just have to meet the minimum.
Yeah.
The minimum criteria.
Oh. I mean, again, you should check it. Every department has its own rules. So if you do enough, like 100% score in GRE quantitative, they may be a little bit more tolerant if you do not perform as well in the.
What's in the GRE? Like calculus? Like basic calculus?
Yeah, basic calculus, and then logic, geometry.
Cannot be SAT for that.
Yes, it's similar.
Like the SAT
Right.
for the university.
Yeah. I think it must be similar to the exam you guys took, probably.
No,
No?
I don't think. I don't think so. The exam, I think the exam they took is has much fewer questions, like 6 questions or something.
6 questions. No, then it's not.
I don't know.
Less done was like 6 big problems. The SME is like, as long as you remember, it's like 16 minutes, like something like that, very short problems.
Yeah, no, these are like multiple choices kind of questions.
I guess.
But there are, many more than 16. Again, you have to fill up 3.5 hours of exam, so all multiple choices. So it just goes on and on and on and on. I don't know how many questions are there. But again, all this is online. So if you look on the GRE website, there are exam samples. You can even, I think, get a book or something like that. So there are ways of practicing on real tests.
By the way, you take the test either in Bologna, Milan, Pordenone, or Rome. That's the current locations. The TOEFL you can take it in Catania, but the GRE you have to travel a little bit.
Because I was in Milan.
You were in Milan, right? So
Yeah, I was in Milan, so I did it in Milan. Also, for this, I remember when I applied, actually, since they have an unallocated number of spots available for taking, for example, the TOEFL, I remember that Milan was packed, and I don't know how many different places are there in Milan for TOEFL, but I had to go to, I think, Bologna to find a spot available within the deadline. So that's why you guys have to think really and plan ahead of time, because you might not find anything available for like the next 2 or 3 weeks. So just for you to know that it's not like, okay, I decide tomorrow to go. No, it's not going to happen. It takes some planning.
So then just wanted to say, so because of the economic situation that you guys have here, and in Europe in general, you have many students from Spain and Italy nowadays. And every single one of them is outstanding. So, and I'm sure you being where you are, you'll do very well wherever you decide to go. So it would be, wherever you are admitted, you will succeed. I'm sure it's not that hard. So you just have to decide that you want to do it, and then there is nothing to worry about whether you will get it or not get it. All of you will get it.
So may we shift? If I may a suggestion, if we shift the focus on the life as so we talk a lot about the admission process, but what about the life as a PhD? What does it look like the first years when you do your master classes, then the research, then if you can tell us a little bit about what the life as a PhD student is.
Your first year, you will not notice that you went to Italy, because you find so many Italians that your English will deteriorate. You will only speak Italian and maybe Spanish if you find friends. And so the first year is hard because you have to take classes in the US, it's in the PhD program. And these classes are the same as you will take if you do masters. Right? So unless you explicitly ask and insist, you will not do research most likely. So you just take classes. And but it's again usually 3 classes a quarter or semester. So for you it should be easy. And apart from that, it depends on where you end up. If you go to along the coast, like Boston, New York, California, then I think you'll enjoy yourself.
We will cut this part as well.
Yeah, no, we'll leave it at that. But I think you have to be motivated. So and I think in Sicily you get a similar motivation that I have. when I moved to the US from Russia. So you have to have a good reason to want to go abroad. Right? So it's not easy. Your friends behind the families. You need to have a reason to do it. But eventually everybody, or most people succeed.
Any questions like about?
That's actually, guys, I have a question for you. So usually any class I teach or any audience I am, the smartest people always sit in the front row, and that's how you put them. And so this is a group of smartest of the smartest, but there are still for seats available.
You just arrived in class.
Okay, so
Yeah, if you have questions.
So,
This is to go to the US for a master technique, and so and if it's then doing the master thesis in the US would be helpful for applying to a PhD with that class or in that way.
Well, so I think that this goes back to his question, to his answer at the beginning, that if you are supported, like by either your own institution, any professor, I think will open his or her arms. At least I would, right? If you are supported. So, and this is, my understanding is that actually many Europeans manage to do that. I mean,
So yeah, we have many exchange students from France,
yeah.
Spain, Italy who come and spend the summer or 6 months. I have a student from Canada. So yeah, it's
Let's say if you are for free, yes, of course. Everybody would love to have you there, anywhere. But, if then there is a requirement of support, that's a different story, right? And, it may be a little harder.
perfect timing.
And then, yes, I think it would help. So if you do a good job during your thesis, of course, you already have established a relationship with your advisor there, and so it may be easier if you, if you did a good job and impressed him or her to get an admission, right, for PhD.
Is there any particular admission for these students? Like,
No, just you can come anytime.
oh, there's a German.
Well, you need to contact me, yes.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, you can call me or any other professor and we do that. So, for example, in France, they have a requirement. I think even for a bachelor's degree that you need to do an internship, right? An internship abroad. So every summer I have many students from France, and because San Diego is, especially if you like surfing, that also, but of course for you it's not a big deal. You have the sea here. So we have many students who come and do that. And I think at any university it's a very well established procedure how to do it. And it's actually cheap because you don't have to pay for anything if you are in exchange student. Right? You don't pay anything to the university.
But you're going to get housing option.
Housing is hard.
No, I don't think so.
But housing is you look Tartakovsky Italians. In my department, I will put you in touch with them. And you can share, especially during the summer.
But you did not attend classes. During this.
Or you will not teach it. You will not get paid.
Oh, okay.
You will not get.
So it's like you can count it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should let the professor know just out of politeness. But I've never heard of anybody say, no, you cannot speak in my class. And people understand.
But I think now in Germany, for example, I know they get a lot of money for PhD students. And so that there are websites that advertise, where people advertise positions. Right? So in the Netherlands, in Germany, so many countries in Europe now have one for PhDs, but I think it depends on what you want to do after that. Whether you want to stay in Germany as an Italian. So that's, I think, what should be on your mind. What's the next step? In fact, there is an excellent book that you should read. It's called PhD is Not Enough. And it's a very short book that I give to all my students. And so it's how to plan your scientific life for the next, I don't know, 10 years, including PhD, so before and after. So how to pick a university, how to pick an advisor, all these things. And it's a very easy book to read and very useful. If you are serious about it.
What about salary? For example, in Europe, there is a salary for a PhD student, 10% of the salary of the years. And how does it work in the USA?
So the salary essentially, and again, so I will speak for myself. So the salary depends essentially on the project that you will be working on. Generally, PhD students are working on a project for which the advisor got funding, and the salary for the PhD student is comes from that part, right? I would say, but again, that was quite some time ago, so the numbers may not be up to date anymore, but I don't know, maybe you start with 1,400 a month, and then as you proceed in your career, it increases. I mean, you will not become rich, right? That's not, but I mean, it's a salary that can sustain, you can rent a house, you can, buy a cheap car, stuff of that nature.
But you also pay the tuition of the student, right?
Yeah. So if you do a PhD, essentially you will not have to worry about all this tuition and things because the advisor will be taking care of that. I'm talking really about what you will get in your pocket for you to live. And again, numbers may change depending on the project because it all depends on the universities. Probably, I don't know if how private universities work, if their salaries are higher or not. But stipends and that.
So I think it varies from one university to another. There is no centralized salary, and it's also public schools, right? So you should be able to go online and just Google it, say PhD salary, whatever department you want. It also varies between departments.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I have a question about the after you graduate, if you know a little bit about the visa situation with the OPT. That's something maybe we haven't discussed yet. That when you graduate, you have a few months of that you can look for a job without having a visa. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think so. It's 1 year.
Yeah, that's.
With the PhD, in my experience, everybody gets a job, so it's not anybody who wants to. So I remember Ilenia was trying to go back to Europe after she graduated, and
I will not respond.
Yeah.
I will not respond.
So I don't think that it's an issue. If you get a PhD in the United States, you'll get a job. That's why I have people do it. Foreigners, right?
Yeah, the PhD, I think, really for foreigners is, I would say, the smoother way, a nicer way to be an immigrant in the US, like the best way, I would say. So if you want to be an immigrant in the US, then, since you're smart and everything else. And
What about
do a PhD that will make, I think, your life easier, and you will have more opportunities. I think that PhD, but that may be wrong, I don't know, but I really think that if you get a PhD in the US, this is still very valuable. If you were to come back, I would not say in academia in Europe, but let's say to companies, European companies. So it's generally a very valued degree. The European system, if you want to become a professor in Europe, then that's, I think, another story. But if you want to come back with a PhD from the US to a European company, that, I think, gives you also a good chance. So there is always the option. I don't think it's an irreversible move that, okay, now I'm done, I will have to be in the US forever. So there is always the possibility of going back.
European academy, are they on the same level or?
So again, it's just the difference. The system is so different. In Germany, for example, it's extremely complicated to become a professor. I don't know all the details, but there is an habilitation process after you get a PhD. The habilitation process lasts for 7 years, and then you have to write another thesis. So the European system, every country has its own rules. I mean, in Italy, I don't want to explicitly say, but we know how it works. So if you go, I would say it's harder to come back as in a research position for many reasons. The first reason is, I would say, practice. Practice is that exists. And the second reason, I forgot, what was the second reason? But it was an important reason.
But I think it's almost impossible.
There are no jobs. Yeah, of course. You see, I was missing this, I was starting from the wrong assumption. Yeah, so first of all, there are very few jobs. And second, practices are very different, and therefore if you don't follow the system in the early stage of your career, then you may never get in. Like if you are gone for too long, you are for long. Let's put it that way. In France, again, I don't know anything about strictly the academic system, but for example, there is an alternative for scientists, which is CNRS. It's the French CNR, and that I would say for international is I would say the simplest way to get into the French system. It does not necessarily require that you speak French, first of all, that you are fluent in French. Actually, in fact, you may not speak it at all, and that would be okay, because that's a pure research position, so you don't have to teach. And then there is, a national competition. You essentially express the desire working with a specific lab, where you must have a contact who supports your application in that lab for that specific position, and then you have to do competition, and so you can apply 3 times. So France has this option. Germany has a very complicated way. First of all, you have to be, I wouldn't say fluent, but already promising in German. Yeah. And then every state is very different, has its own rules, so you gotta be aware of those. It's not as standardized as it is in the US, where you know what the next step will be and what you have to do in order to achieve it. It's a little bit.
You have to ask a question since you.
I don't want to ask something that is about the morning.
But try. And then we'll tell you.
I have one question for that.
Okay.
I can remember if you ask me.
Hello, is there any other topic we should touch on?
I cannot think of any. Just maybe we should wrap it up. I wanted to thank you guys for agreeing to have this discussion. I hope you enjoy your time at the Scuola. You're in this beautiful building, which I've never personally seen. To me, that is like a Neverland. I don't know. It's always been talked about, but I've never personally seen it. So I guess now you're gonna have dinner together, and you can exchange contact information, and you guys can keep in mind you have I'm sure that if you want to talk of this topic with your professors at the Scuola, like even Professor Priolo, your president, he's a ton of international experience with students going abroad and coming back. He can also give you excellent advice, in my opinion, of what is the best choice for you to do. But yeah, the message was, start thinking about it as soon as you can, because if you think about it too late, you may not be lucky enough to have the opportunity that you deserve. So that's all I wanted to say. And so thank you very much, and thank you, Ilenia and Daniel, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And
Carlo, can I ask you, what's the plan afterwards? We are not quite sure.
Well, you're gonna have dinner together. There is dinner for all of you.
Oh.
And then you're free to go. Is there anyone? Antonio, is there like anyone from the staff of the Scuola around? Yeah, Antonio.
Yeah.
Is there anyone like that can give them a tour or show them the structure? Maybe, I don't know if you have labs or anything like that. If they want to, so they can tell me how it looks like. Yeah, that's it. So.
All right, thank you, Calogero.
Oh, thank you guys.
Thank
you.
For coming.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Grazie Ile.
Oh, ciao Calogero, salutami Cecilia.
Grazie.